I'm Kiwi,
And I'm Jarad.
and we are the two gentlemen coming to you in a blaze of glory. Jarad, how are you?
In theory, I'm okay, but I got a splinter in my lip yesterday from a wooden, like a wooden cutlery sort of. I had a spoon with a bit of yogurt, and these days you get wooden cutlery because it's better for the environment. And I get it, but I also got a splinter. So I have mixed emotions about wooden cutlery at the moment.
Wow, that sounds painful.
Yeah, what it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant at all. Somebody hadn't smoothed out the spoon properly. I don't know if they're wooden, but they're like eco-friendly and they feel and they leave like a wooden. They're not got angry. So every bite of the or every spoonful of the yogurt, I'm like, I can taste the wooden cutlery in this. I might as well eat off a stick, you know. I started to turn into an old grumpy old man, but
Wow.
that was because of the splinter in my lip. It wasn't a big splinter. I was able to just, but it wasn't pleasant. And, yeah, I'm now, yeah, like I said, mixed emotions about it. I understand why they're there, but I've been affected.
Definitely check next time. Imagine if that was one of your girls.
Yeah,
The
yeah, it wouldn't
tears
have
would have
been
gone
nice.
for a while. I mean, how long did
I
you
would
cry
have,
for?
yeah, yeah. Well, longer than they would have, but
Yeah.
mine were all internal tears. I was trying to be tough while I ate my yogurt. I took them for a swim, and as we were leaving, I decided to, be healthy and grab a nice yogurty, sort of homemade yogurty thing that they sell at the cafe, and yeah, ended up regretting it.
So next time you should get some fast food.
I
Much
know, I
safer.
know. Yeah, much safer. Yeah, right.
I don't think you've ever got a splinter from a Big Mac before, have you?
No, no, I can't remember it, but
Exactly.
yeah.
Checkmate. Environment.
Well, that was my recent issues. How are you going, mate? Have I asked that yet?
No, you haven't. I'm good. I'm good. What have I been doing? I actually did something really exciting the other day. Not like much will come of it, probably, but I started looking into getting an agent for my novel to represent me as an author. So yeah, I found somebody that might be suitable for me, and I've sent off a query to them, but whether or not I hear anything back. But something that was really cool was I had to write a little bio. And something
Yeah,
I got to include was that I am one half of the two gentlemen that can be heard on a weekly podcast. So I
there
thought
you
that was
go.
really nice. It was a little bit of a bit of cred for me. I'm actually involved in creativity in some way on a regular basis. And
Yep.
I was quite proud to be able to put that.
It is. It's funny you say that. I mean, it's a nice little add to your resume, and like you said, your bio. That's pretty cool. And I was actually listening to an old episode recently, just for checking that, just having a re-listen and seeing how we were back in the day. It's actually quite cool to listen to, and hear how we were getting through the lockdown and things like that. But it was quite fun. I never get over the fact that when we're on I was listening in the car, and I never get over the fact that when you see it come up on the digital screen of your radio, the two gentlemen, like, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's just a little bit that probably doesn't mean much, but it's just a funny sort of thought I get. I'm like, oh wow, that's us. Like,
Yeah.
usually it's like a radio station or a song or whatever, but to see our name there, it's like we've made it. No, no.
We've made it to the dashboard of your car, Jarad. Amazing. What level of fame is that?
Yeah, no, it's the high level. I haven't worked it out yet, but, but
Well, that's
honestly,
below Insta famous, so I don't know what it is.
somewhere between that and yeah,
Yeah.
TikTok. Um, but yeah, no, it's yeah, I mean, that's a little less than what you did, but that's cool, man. That's awesome. You've been able to look at the potential of release like an agent, and taking the first or one or a step forward in getting this piece of work out. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? You've got to chase your dreams, people. So just give it everything you've got, and you know what? I'm going to go out of my shield. If
Yeah.
if I make it, I make it. If I don't, that's okay too. I'm doing a lot of cool stuff in my life. I'm doing this podcast with you.
Yeah.
hanging out with my family, homeschooling my kids. They know me as a human being all through their lives. So I feel
Mm.
like, no matter what happens, no matter how I do materially, I've done a lot of cool stuff in my life and I'm a happy guy. So
Yeah.
let's leave it all up to the writing gods, huh?
Well, as a friend, that's something that I'm really, really proud of you for doing, mate. So well done. Um, and it just brings me to my point for today. I was actually thinking about friendships and all the little things that go along with it that that add up to a friendship. But there's sometimes like, is it? I'm going to ask this real quick, and then we'll branch in hopefully. But is it okay to say no to a friend asking me something? And if it is, when, and if it isn't, like explain, see if you can elaborate on that question.
Yes, it is okay to say no. In fact, I think it's preferable to say no rather than a reluctant, oh, yeah, all right. I
Mm.
think as a friend, I'd prefer someone's honesty and just, for example, something I've done a lot of, airport runs. So I don't know why, but I was a designated airport runner for a few people, including my own family. And I was always happy to do that. But if I didn't, I think it would be much better if I just said, no, I don't want to do that. I've done a lot of those. I never get reimbursed for the petrol or the tolls or my time. And
Yeah.
I'm actually a pretty busy guy. There was a time where I wasn't working and my brother would always be like, oh, can you do this for me? Can you take my car to get serviced? Can you do that? And, people just think you've got this unlimited time because you don't have a set commitment, but you've got your own other things to do too.
Yeah.
But my point is that if you can't do something or if you don't want to do something, I'd prefer to know. I'd prefer someone to say, no, I can't do that. And as a friend, why would I get offended? Why would I be hurt in any way? I want people to be able to be honest with me. And as a good friend, you don't want to ask people to do things that they're not comfortable with.
Mm.
So yes, to me, no is a complete sentence, and that's fine. What about you, Jarad?
I'm a bit torn. I take what you're saying, and I do agree with it. And then part of me is like, well, you do. I don't know if it's in my makeup or if it's something that I'm, comfortable with doing, but I'm like, I don't mind going out of my way to help a friend. And in saying that, I even don't mind going out of my way to help strangers. But it does take its toll, like you said, on your time and and then that then reflects into your time with your family, financially, like I said, if you're driving to the airport or if you're taking someone to work. And what I have to be careful with, and I'm sure there's people in the same sort of situation, is it doesn't become expected. So if you do someone a favor and then, like you said, you became the airport guy for your, sorry if I heard wrong, but you're like your friends and family there. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, take me to the airport. And then you say no. And then you turn into the bad guy, like you've done something good and you've helped people out. And then all of a sudden the expectation is there that, oh, well, it might not be, how do I put it, an expectation that they're aware of. It might just be a subconscious sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But, it's like, oh, well, we'll ring Kiwi first, yep. And that can wear thin and it can also hurt friendships or relationships and things like that if nobody's honest. If you've got two people trying to be nice and trying to just, one has an expectation and you're like, oh, behind the scenes going, no, this is hard work. I don't want to do this over and over again. And then all of a sudden it actually causes a fracture or something. So I think you're right in saying that, but if in what you said, no is okay. And it's not a bad thing. Because honesty, like we've discussed, is the best way forward. But yeah, I struggle with it sometimes. I must admit, because
yeah.
I do want to help. So I've got to set those parameters, or I've got to be aware that somebody or something or whatever may become expected of me.
Yeah, and look, you're a really nice guy, Jarad. I think that's the difference. I'm a real cold-hearted man, whereas you're very, very nice. No, look, I hope I didn't come across as cold or anything saying, yeah, you can say no, just tell everyone to bugger off. That's not what I meant at all. I just mean it's really important to
Mm.
have, I guess, your own personal self-care levels.
Yep.
And we've said it before, you can only give when you've got a surplus. So that's
Yep.
fine. I'm always happy to help people when I can.
Yep.
But it's when I can't that it should be easy for me to say no.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, we talked about the self-care many moons ago in one of the episodes, and I even probably said this, or you might have said this, but when an aeroplane's going down, you've got to look after yourself and make sure you're okay before you can help anyone else. So you see that all the time. Put your mask on, then you can go and help people put their mask on. So same theory that you're okay and you're in a good space. Or maybe when the aeroplane's not going down, you're in a good space, but you're in a better space than you were if you didn't have the mask on. Then you can go and help your friends and your family and be the best you that you can be, and the best sort of friendship and relationship you can have.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it's important to understand that metaphor in context. Very rarely in life is the aeroplane crashing for any of us, but it does happen. So please don't walk around thinking that, the aeroplane's crashing all the time and you just can't help anybody. It's not like that at all. Quite often, most of us are in a state of equilibrium where we can give. And I feel that you and I in particular, what I know about your life and my life, I feel that we're usually, I'd say 99% of the time, in a position to give in some way. Like right now, if you got a phone call from someone in distress, we stop this podcast and I'd be like, Jarad, go for it. You go help your friend, and it'd be no issue at all.
100%.
And you'd feel the same for me. We don't have those needs, but of course that changes as, things come up in life. But it's just important to understand where you are at right now. That's all.
Yeah. It's I think that's the key. And and I guess I want to say, similar to what you said, it's not a matter of us sitting here saying say no all the time. I want to put out there that I will drop most things to help somebody. And there's a lot of things that I can do, but that sort of brings up a thought am I being a good friend if I do that? If I say actually I'll take that back. That's bringing up those thoughts do I have to do that to be a good friend? That's a tough one that people might struggle with. Like if somebody, there has to be an equal sort of balance there, any relationship, and if somebody's sort of giving and taking more and less and whatever, that would have effect, and somebody might feel like they're not fulfilling their friendship quota. Is that the right word? Or they're not being a good friend if they weren't to drive that person to the airport and drop everything they were doing.
Well, then let's define what a good friendship is then, Jarad. So I've never driven you to the airport. I've never helped you with your house renovations. I don't think I've even given. I actually do have a birthday present for you. You still haven't picked it up, but rarely have we done anything like that for each other, right? So let me ask you, what makes a good friend?
That is a very, very tough question and a good question. I think there's a lot of sorry, not saying that we're not good friends. We're good friends. I'll start with that, but it's a tough one to answer because every friendship and every relationship is different and requires different amount of time and things and whatever. So we've all had that friend that you can just ring after 6 years and you feel like nothing's changed. We've all been and had that sort of friend that, may need to call you every week. We've all been that, that close friend where our families connect. The more that I think of it, the more confused I get because, every friendship is different. So I've really done a long way around of telling you that I don't have the answer. I talked myself into a bit of a circle there. But, like our friendship, for example, we spent a lot of time apart through the middle of our life, I guess. I don't know. But so we had a strong, saw each other every day friendship for however many years, and that ended at sort of 18, to 19. And then it became like a weekly thing because of football. Then football stopped, and then that friendship sort of, the time we spent together dwindled. Right, I was always your friend, but we're in that category of like I was able to pick up a phone and talk to you and have no kind of issues with it. So
Yep.
that to me signifies a connection. You know, you've got to have that connection there, and that signifies that connection.
So there you go. You, after all that big roundabout explanation, you came to the key word, connection.
Yeah,
So
I did.
I think you've nailed it, Jared. So connection, and that first connection is what matters. And quite often, we use that word chemistry. There's got to be chemistry between people in some way, and we use the term as well, wavelength. You're on a similar wavelength to somebody. It doesn't have to be for every single aspect of your life. You can vote for whatever political party you want to. I can vote my way, but you can always be on a similar wavelength about something, and that just gives that little spark, that we call chemistry.
Yeah.
And I think from there, if there's enough, I guess, common values, you can sustain that, and it grows into something. It's like that's a seed, and then it grows into, if you've got enough fertile land, for example, in the case of two guys who play rugby together, they might have some chemistry, they might have some sort of common thing that they're into, but they've also got that fertile land, which is rugby, that keeps them growing, that keeps them seeing each other. And then from there, it builds and it sustains itself. And that's what happened to us. Ours is different because we're childhood friends. But in the case of our number one fan, Hannah, she and I, we had chemistry. She had chemistry with my whole family. And the fertile land that we had was surfing. So from there, that seed was planted. We were able to surf together. We stayed in contact with one another. We had a few other things in common, like diet, for example. And then it just blossomed, and now it lives. It lives on its own. So we don't even really need to water it so much. I'll definitely give her a message every now and then, and she'll give me a call. But it's got its own life.
You don't actually need the surfing. Now the surfing was like you said, the space that it thrived in, but right now it's gone past that point now. And that's I'm in the situation with a lot of guys that I play football with now that, we don't need the football anymore. But we had it, and that's what started our, that was our what do you call it? The field? What did you say?
The fertile ground.
The fertile ground. And that now we just have, like you said, a friendship that's just flourished because of, it started at that point, but it kept us there. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, we have a connection. Our families have connections, whatever it might be. And that spark, that chemical, that spark that, needs to be ignited. It's easier with people that are on the same sort of level, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's done its job. And now you don't have to sustain it so much. It doesn't need as much watering anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose that's how you explain really, like we've both got friends like this, and where you can just, like I said, pick up a phone years down the track, or, send a message here and there. Yeah, it doesn't need to be poked or prodded. It's just, the fire ignites the spark ignites as soon as you sort of make contact, and that's good.
All right. So that's how friendships start, and they kind of exist. But of course, how do we actually be a good friend? Like, the art of friendship, I guess, is what I'm trying to talk about. With saying no, being able to ask for things. What do you like asking for something from a friend? I'd like to give you an example. I got a parking sticker of somebody, and I've always bought them to park at certain beaches. And, I've answered ads in Gumtree and bought them for, whatever they're going for. Another friend of mine sold me his because he lives in that council.
Yeah.
But someone else, I asked because I figured she had two.
Yeah.
She gave me hers.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, she was being a very good friend by doing that. And I feel like I was being a good friend by offering to pay. So I feel that it's got to be a reciprocal thing. I don't think I had the right to ask for it for nothing. I don't think that's right at all for me to go, hey, you've got that spare sticker. Can you give it to me? I feel
Yeah.
like that's wrong. So I feel like the right thing to do was to offer.
Yeah.
And whatever she said in return was really, there was no right or wrong. It's not wrong for her to say, oh, look, can you give me $90 for it? Because that's the going rate. That's fair, because I'm actually robbing her of $90 if she could easily sell it on another market. So I feel like she really did me a solid there. And I think this is the second or third year she's done it for me. So that's a bit of money.
Yeah.
So she's been a really good friend.
Yeah. Look, that's, like you said, there's no right or wrong there. She could have turned around and said, yep, throw us a bit of coin, but you gave her the opportunity. So you didn't expect, it wasn't expectation. It was just I need this. Are you interested in selling it? You gave her the opportunity to go, yep, $50 or $50 or whatever, or free. That was her choice. So it wasn't you demanding it not demanding, but it wasn't you asking for it for free. So that's a good someone's done good for you. It's continuing to do good. So obviously they like you, and that's things like that create friendships. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's a cool little story.
Yeah, I guess my point is, it's really about giving. Like, two people giving works. One person giving and the other person taking doesn't work.
No.
Jarad, I want to move on to the thing that probably sustains relationships the most, or starts them off the most as well, which is conversation. Now, a lot of people have social anxiety, and the reason why I bring this up is my eldest son was asking me about friendships, and he was saying, I'd love to learn more about friendships. And it's not really something that anybody studies. Like, you might think going to school, oh, you make heaps of friends, but it's never really turned into a science. And it's something that you just kind of learn as you go. And whether or not you become a good friend or a bad friend, you don't even know. Whether you become good at conversation or bad at conversation, you don't figure that out. And I think there's a lot of books on it, which demonstrates that, it's something that you need to specifically learn sometimes. But something I've seen a lot in terms of conversation is people cutting each other off, or people hijacking stories. And because I'm with Erica and she's so good at active listening, it's something that I've picked up on a lot. And it surprises me when I meet adults who hijack another adult's story. Do you find that?
I've become aware of that since this podcast. So I think at first I might have jumped in on you in the first couple episodes. I think I was a bit overactive, and maybe that was just excitement or nerves or whatever. And I never thought I actually did that until listening back. I'm like, oh man, he just cut him off, or he did it. But so I'm quite aware of that now as I live, since we've started this, to not do it. I see it at all levels, but yeah, you do come across in normal conversation, and you're almost like, part of me is like, should I hijack this one and tell but what's my place here? Like, I can see that somebody is trying to get a story out or trying to discuss something, and then, it might be somebody that's close to them don't know they're doing it, or it might be just their dynamic as a friend or as a whatever, or it just kind of makes you, now that I'm aware of it, I see it more, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's something that I haven't really got a major, like, I don't know yet. Like, I don't know. I'm still trying to learn why it occurs. Whether it's somebody subconsciously trying to, get in front of them as an anxiety sort of thing, or somebody doesn't have confidence in, what they're saying or how they're displaying that story or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And it's quite prevalent.
I think it's a general lack of awareness. It's just simply lack of social skills. And I see it a lot in groups where it's, you might tell me stories like, oh, actually, you know what? That same thing happened to me. And then they just run off with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I don't even exist anymore. And it's not like you want all this attention or anything. I guess you want your words acknowledged.
Yeah.
That's all. So my point is, to be a good friend, it's important to have good conversation skills. And the most important part of conversation skills is listening skills, of course. So I just want to put that out there that, as grown adults, to be a good friend, listening is probably right up there as the most important thing.
It is. And as a person that's being listened to, I would suggest that that's hard to get used to for some. And I had not trouble. I just had an adjustment to make when we started doing this podcast because you're a very good listener. So I'd speak and then you'd almost have this moment of like, you almost feel like I should have finished it better, or you feel this pressure of like, oh, he's really listening. Hopefully I said some good stuff, like you go back on in your mind. I'm like, oh, I did this and did that, because you're a good listener. And that's an adjustment to make. Like if somebody is there listening to every word you say, then there's a bit of pressure. And I don't know, that's just my mindset, but I feel like, I had an adjustment to make because I was like, no, what you're saying is good. It's just the way that the conversation is happening, you're actually being heard. And that shows how rare it is that it makes you a little bit sort of like, oh, wow, that's different, So you are a very good listener, and the conversations I have with you are positive and good because of that. So I can only suggest anyone out there, if you are sort of, you do keep your mind, if you do think that maybe you do jump in, or just take a step back and have a listen and see how your conversations go. Just have a try. What's the problem with having a crack at it? Like it just sort of, might give you a different perspective on things.
Yeah. Thanks, Jarad. That was really nice of you to say that. I think the only reason you wouldn't listen is because you think what you have to say is more important than what the person is saying.
Yeah.
You're just waiting to jump in, and your story is more important than theirs. Your experience is more important, and you just want to trump them. Or even if it's not a conscious thing where you want to be better than them or tell something that trumps their story, it might just be that you're so self-centered. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I just mean that, quite often we've got a worldview that starts with us at the center of it, rather than thinking that other people's lives are really important as well. So maybe it's just a little adjustment you need to make in your life. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about anybody in general.
Yeah.
It's just a little adjustment you might need to make, that, hang on a second, everyone's got their own life and I can really learn from them. And I mean, the reason why I listen is because I genuinely want to know what's going on in a person's life. Like I love people. So it's like, hey, man, what's going on for you? And I'm invested in their story.
I think you're right. It's a social setting sort of thing in a way, or anxiety, because I know even with doing this podcast, we sort of, take it in turns to speak. That's how it kind of works. And when you're saying something, I'll hear something and I'm like, oh, I've got an opinion about that. And then all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, you're still talking about that something else, but you've sort of branched off into a little bit more of something, or dug deeper or something like that. But in my head, I've got this little other bit that you've said. And I'm like, I've got to comment on that. I've got to comment. And then all of a sudden, so you don't actually listen to the last little bit of the conversation, and or you're just focusing on that piece that you've got a little bit of, and then that I think that's when the timing runs out, and then people do stop listening because they're focused on what they're going to say next, whether that's a social anxiety sort of thing, or whether that's, oh look, I need to express this opinion or whatever. That would probably explain a little bit of why people kind of don't hear everything someone says, because they're trying to reciprocate the conversation or continue the conversation themselves.
Yeah, it's almost like we're too afraid to let a tiny bit of silence creep in. When you're in a group and it goes silent, people are quite often like, oh crap, what are we going to do next? Who's going to talk next? And then someone will say something like, so, yeah, right?
Have you been in a car where that happens? Like there's like four people in the car and you're talking and it's like, I don't know, you got an hour trip or something. And then, 40 minutes in, it's just like, we don't have any, like, well, it's just like just the silence. And then you start to think, I've got to say something, I've got to say something, I've
Yeah.
got to say something. But it's very uncomfortable. And then, I don't know, like you said, someone says, so, yeah, or start singing the song on the radio or just to break the silence. But, yeah, that occurs. That occurs, and it's something that we all have to deal with at some point. I don't think it's that bad.
I'm actually friends with this beautiful couple, and I'll give them a shout out, Barbara and Nick. And something Barbara said that was great when they first met was that how comfortable they were in silence together.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this was very early on. So I thought that was a really beautiful thing to say. And it was also, quite telling that we do get so anxious, especially around someone new, especially around a prospective partner, that we always feel like we've got to say something, be on and impress someone.
Yeah, it's why people say stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you're like, why did I say that? Or how? I've never said that word ever. Like, yeah.
I know. I remember once when my eldest son was 3 years old, he was entertaining us all and we're all staring at him and laughing. He had all this attention. And then he just kind of ran out of stuff to do. So he just put a bowl on his head, just randomly. And to me, that really symbolizes this conversation for all of us.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We put the bowl on the head because we've got no idea where this is going.
So right. Yeah, it's a crazy world out there that and you throw in all the anxiousness and everything that can occur, and it can cause people to do things, I think, subconsciously without knowing, like cutting people off and not letting them finish, or completely ignoring half of their sentence just to go back. I think that's all caused by a lot of their own thoughts, maybe. My opinion, but yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just that anxiety of wanting to get something out, wanting to jump in, wanting to share. But it's also that fear of, I'm going to say it, not being loved.
Yeah.
I think that, deep down, we've all got this, oh crap, do people like me? I've just got to keep being interesting. I've got to keep saying something. I've got to keep being present. And the only way I can be present is by making noise. It doesn't matter what that noise is. I'm just going to say something.
All in my head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't think you need to do that, people. I don't think you need to put a bowl on your head, proverbially speaking. You can just be, just be yourself and connect with people. If you can be your honest self, then people will feel your true wavelength. And they'll know if they're on the same wavelength as you. And that spark, that chemistry will start up. And if you just keep being honest, keep being giving, and if people are being giving with you and they're deserving of your love, well, it'll just blossom in that fertile field, and you'll develop a beautiful friendship. So in that place, we are comfortable with one another, and you are loved.
After what you just said, Dan, it just seems like a lot of it is out of our hands. Like if our natural instincts and our natural reactions are what creates a good friendship. How that blossoms isn't out of our hands. That's something that we can choose to do. But there's certain things in life that, we don't have control over. And I think that is the main sort of connection points between, building relationships. Like I said, we have control of what we do once we're in those relationships and friendships and all that sort of stuff. But it's, there's a lot out there that we probably don't have control over.
No, and you can't control what people think of you, but you can control what you do with yourself, and you can be proud of who you are. So without selling out, without acting like somebody who you aren't, just be yourself, have integrity, and you can control that, and you can be proud of that. Jarad, thank you so much. We've gone well over time, but friendship and conversation is so important. Everybody out there, I hope that you've picked up something from this. Hopefully you've enjoyed our conversation skills. And I just want to say, I just realized what date it is. It's the 20th of October, and we've got an old friend who lived in our neighborhood. It's his birthday today. So happy birthday, Mark.
Yeah, happy birthday, mate. I've actually got a few mates this birthday, so happy birthday to all of them. And happy birthday, Mark.
Thanks, Jarad.
Thanks, mate. Bye.